Hey there, it's Sam. Early in the morning on June 27th, we're going to have the new moon in Gemini. So the new moon is a time when sun and moon come together. And at this time, they're going to join and come together in Gemini, Ardra Nakshatra. Now, at this time, it's quite auspicious. Mercury, Venus, Jupiter, and Saturn are all either in their own signs or exalted at that time. So this brings together an enormous amount of grace as this Gemini cycle becomes initiated for 2014. Of course, one of the planets is Mercury, who is the ruler of Gemini, and Mercury is retrograde, and of course, especially in Vedic, or I'm sorry, especially in Western astrology and in, sort of hack astrology, Mercury retrograde is considered, oh, it's bad, everything that happens in my life when Mercury goes retrograde is to be blamed on Mercury retrograde. Look, it does show the consequences that come from not paying attention to details, from not expressing ourselves clearly, and depending on which houses that Mercury retrograde happens when it's going, by transit, it can be very difficult. Also, depending on the nature of Mercury for you, certain signs have a problem with it, in particular the water signs, Pisces, Cancer, Scorpio. Mercury goes retrograde in those difficult houses, especially Scorpio and Cancer. I've noticed this Mercury retrograde cycle that has been pretty difficult. But in general, retrograde planets have a very powerful source of strength with them as well, because they're closer to the Earth when they're retrograde. And the backing up quality is also a time for us to really slow down on what we say, what we speak, and also to listen more. Mercury retrograde is very much about listening, not just speaking, because it's the feminine reflective part of that energy. So when a planet is retrograde, it really brings out its feminine internal nature, and the feminine internal quality of communication is what we take in. For instance, what we listen to, how we hear, how we receive, and then the masculine part of communication is how we adjust and what we speak. So Mercury retrograde has been happening, and it's been bringing out a lot of consequences relative to if we're paying attention to details or what we've been saying, and how, are we getting the message about what we've been speaking. Those who have been speaking clearly and with truth and beauty and dignity and dharma will be seeing some very nice corrective activities in their life, and others will not. They may be experiencing a lot of confusion or difficult consequences based on how well they're listening and paying attention to what they're communicating. So that's Mercury retrograde as ruling this new moon in Gemini. But the new moon, as I said, is a time when a new cycle starts, and at this time it's about Gemini issues, which is about communication, speech, flexibility, and making adjustments based on what we receive, and of course that's based on how well we're managing and organizing all of the details, and whether or not we're using a lot of discrimination based on what's coming back to us. So the highest quality of Mercury, which is the ruler of Gemini, and the highest Gemini energy in general, has to do with discrimination and recognizing truth from fiction, in the sense of this thought is not real, this is not the truth, or this thing that I said which was not true is coming back to bite me. This interpretation that I have of this thing that was said or this thing that happened, this is the problem, that I'm interpreting it. As I said when Mercury retrograde started, Mercury is really like the voice in our head and the story that we're telling ourselves about things, and it's very important. In general, for water and fire signs, Mercury is more of a difficult planet because they're very emotional or very inspirational, and the story is often some kind of exaggeration or some kind of impulse, rather than earth and air signs are more practical, and the story is much more neutral and even, just in a general sense. So again, these are big, important Mercury lessons that we're all going to be dealing with in the next month or so, starting on June 27th, early in the morning, June 27th. So, and as I just said, within that context, we have Mercury is in Gemini. Of course, he's retrograde, as I said, but we also have Venus in Taurus, which brings a high capacity for beauty and connection and family and really feeling taken care of and nurtured. We also have exalted Jupiter that just went into Cancer. Jupiter is highly exalted right now, which is bringing a lot of grace through gurus and higher teachings. And we also have exalted Saturn, which is about staying the course and being determined to bring about the things that are, you know, truthful and practical in life, especially as it relates to others, because Saturn is exalted in Libra. So how we've been handling others and our relationships with others, especially since the end of 2011, is still a big theme with Saturn in Libra. Saturn exalted in Libra. So we have 2 exalted planets and 2 planets in their own signs right now. You know, that's Jupiter and Saturn exalted, and Mercury and Venus in their own signs. So a very high capacity for discrimination and creativity and beauty. I've made another, video training, and I did another blog update about those 4 planets in very high dignity, which you can also check out. So I'm, making this video because it's the beginning of that Gemini cycle, and it's in Ardra Nakshatra. Now, Ardra is ruled by Lord Rudra, who is the fierce form of Lord Shiva from the Krishna Yajurveda, the Sri Rudram, and it's very much the energy of, solitude and strength and courage, and, to face the truth and destroy what needs to be destroyed in order to be in alignment with the truth. It's that part of Gemini which is ready to just destroy anything that's not true. This is the thing about Gemini. If you don't want the truth, then don't hang around Gemini, people too much, or don't hang around that energy, because it's not about convention or tradition or propriety. Gemini is where the truth is what's important, no matter how it looks, even if it destroys our own current paradigm of truth. For a Gemini person, they're always ready to shatter the existing paradigm in order to accommodate a more pure version of the truth, based on new information that's gathered, based on new technology. It's not, there are no sacred cows when it comes to Gemini in that sense. And Ardra is the quality of Gemini which is ready to shatter and destroy any worn out paradigm, and also defend the truth, sometimes with too much strength and too much intensity. So, this Ardra Nakshatra also exists right on the plane of the galaxy. So this new moon in Ardra, it's happening, I think it's about 9 degrees. No, I'm sorry, it's about 12 degrees of sidereal Gemini, which is literally about 5 or 6 degrees off of the galactic plane. So this is the most transformative section of the galaxy, has been acknowledged in all cultures, including the Mayans and the Indians and whatnot. So it's a nakshatra and a section of sky that is about transformation regardless of how it looks to the world. And that even includes things like, 9/11 and the testing of the atomic bomb and Hurricane Katrina and the tsunamis, and all of these kinds of things happen in Ardra Nakshatra. It can be very destructive, but it's about transformation of energy. So expect there to be a lot of transformation in the highest sense in the next month or so as we live this new moon in Gemini cycle in Ardra Nakshatra with all of these planets in very high dignity. We can expect to learn a lot through that, through all of these changes. And for my members, those who get my membership and get my daily forecast, you can also see how this is going to play out for your sign. You'll also want to check your email and look for how this new moon in Gemini is going to affect your sign. So thanks a lot. Share this with others if you think it's going to be beneficial to them.